Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Today I just want to talk about 5 common mistakes that a lot of BRYAN players make at a lower to intermediate skill level. I coach a lot of BRYAN players, and these are just some of the bad habits that I've picked up on while I've been coaching them. So hopefully this video is helpful to you, whether you're all the way from red ranks to even, God ranks. A lot of these habits are still prevalent with a lot of BRYAN players, and a lot of them are super exploitable, and it makes them pretty easy to beat. So yeah, I've just got 5 common mistakes here for intermediate BRYAN players, so let's get into it. So the first bad habit that I want to talk about is a really common one that a lot of people have, which is responding to too many interactions with slow moves. So what I mean by that is you block a DF1, you block a move that's -5, -6, whatever, and you're always doing back 1, 3+4, things like that, trying to land that counter hit, kind of hoping that they're going to play out a turn a little bit. The problem with that is that all of these moves have super big weaknesses in the fact that they are slow, they are linear, and it's really easy for an opponent to exploit those weaknesses if they are on point. So when I coach BRYAN players, a lot of times I'll play a character like Steve or a character like Jin or a character with decent poking to kind of see how they respond. And a lot of BRYAN players are blocking DF1s, they're blocking moves that are -1, 2, 3, and they're responding with 3+4, with back 1, with these super slow linear buttons that I would really never get counter hit by in that situation. Not only that, but they're super easy to move around. And I just have a couple examples. I just want to show you guys how easy it is to really move around a lot of these moves that BRYAN has. So, for example, with just a normal DF1, right? -3 on block. Back 1's gonna whiff here. QC back 1's gonna whiff here. Most of my moves are gonna whiff here that are my slower buttons. Now, even a move that's -5, right? Like Jin back forward 2-1, -5. So I'm +5 here. My back 1 is still gonna whiff. My QC back 1 is still gonna whiff. I think 3+4 actually does hit him here, but no, it doesn't even. He can still step that as well. And then even a move that's -9, where you would think that you would have the leeway to kind of throw out a back 1 or something like that, he's still able to step that. Now, of course, he's still going to get clipped by QC back 1. Oh, never mind. If you do QC back 1 really fast here, I think it does end up hitting him. Yeah, just like that. But if you're not super on point with your QC back 1 and you get it out really fast, he's going to be able to move around it even when he's -9. So that's just a couple examples to show you guys how bad this habit can be. In these situations, a lot of BRYAN players are neglecting their pokes, right? Their DF2, their down 2, their DF1, things like that. And you can see how easy it is to actually lock him down for moving after his DF1 with our own DF1, for example, with our low pokes, like our down back 3, our down 4, things like that. Even if we want to respond with like a down 2, that will track to the right, a 1+2, things like that. But if we're responding with these slow, super linear counter hit buttons at range 0, it's really easy for the opponent to sidestep and launch, or even to mash a potential retaliation to beat a lot of these buttons. So the really bad habit that I'm touching on here is just seeing a move, it's technically your turn, and you throw out a super slow button, and it's really easy to die for it. So ways to alleviate that, like I said earlier, are just using your pokes. There are also a couple ways that you can make your moves realign. I've talked about this in my realignment video, which is just you can dash forward and your moves will realign. You can sidestep with the opponent like that if you have a read that they're going to sidestep, and your move will track them a bit better, as you can see, just like that. So there are options if you do want to respond with a counter hit button. It's not a bad idea all the time, but way too many BRYAN players are stuck in this habit of responding to everything with a counter hit button, just hoping that it's going to land. We want to be a bit more calculated with that, with our slower counter hit buttons. So trying to avoid this habit, trying to play more of a poking battle with the opponent up close when they're doing DF1s, things like that, is really important. Alright, so the second bad habit that I want to touch on, it kind of ties into our last one, which is neglecting BRYAN's pokes. We talked a little bit earlier about the over-reliance on big counter hit buttons and the big weaknesses that are attached to them. So obviously they're slower, they're pretty linear, and they don't really do much if the opponent doesn't get counter hit, typically. Now obviously you have moves like QC back 1 and back 1, which are plus on block, so even if they don't get a counter hit, you can still put yourself in an advantageous situation. The problem that a lot of mid-level Bryan players kind of run into is that they are not able to keep up with the opponent because the opponent is doing a lot of pokes, the opponent is kind of keeping them locked down at range 0, and they're not really finding an opening for a 3+4 or a QC back 1 or something like that, and they just kind of feel lost without those moves being able to land a counter hit. So I have a whole video on my channel about how to poke with Bryan. It's from Tekken 7, but every poke is essentially exactly the same, so I'm not going to really spend too much time on that. I would recommend you guys watch that video, but I just want to touch on the importance of using your pokes with Bryan, because his pokes are actually really solid. His low pokes are amazing. Down 4, down back 3 are really good low pokes. I mean, the situation from down 4 on hit is amazing. It sets up a bunch of space, so even if you're locked at range 0 and you just really want to get out, just hitting a down 4 can kind of put you back in that range where QC back 1 is a huge threat, 3+4 is a huge threat, where they're really not much of a threat up close, right? Same with down back 3, the situation is really good. They have to worry about wall sending 3 and other potential follows from crouch, so you kind of have a lot of leeway to run your offense after this low any way that you want. And then DF2 and down 2, those are your main mid pokes, right? These are what you're going to use to keep your opponent in check, to challenge them up close, but they also have counter hit launching extensions that are delayable that you can use to kind of play out of turn with these moves. So a lot of the game plan with these mid pokes with Bryan is really just using them to kind of stay in control of the pace of the match so that you're able to keep up with your opponent and you're not just stuck only relying on counter hit buttons, because as you get higher ranks and you're fighting players that are better, that game plan of kind of just like sitting at range, fishing for a 3+4 and praying at counter hits kind of stops working as well, and you have to actually be able to get damage on the side as well without getting a counter hit. So that's where these mid pokes and these low pokes are coming in, just to give you more of a an opportunity to actually keep up with your opponent up close if they're poking you down. Get some hits in there, get some damage, and keep in mind also, you know, all these pokes, it's always going to be non-recoverable life. All of this is no gray health. You hit a DF1, for example, you confirm it, that's 34 damage, no gray life, right? You do a couple down 4s, that's 13 damage, and that stuff really starts to add up, and it really starts to get you a lot of damage in the long run. And like I said, all of this is non-recoverable, so make sure that you're actually poking with this character up close. You know, you're down 2, your DF2, your DF1, the low pokes need to come into play as well. Try not to fall into the habit of just only doing these slow, super exploitable counter hit buttons, just so that you actually, like I said, have a chance to control your opponent a bit better, keep them in check, and you're not just getting sidestepped and mashed on all the time. So don't neglect the mid pokes, and the low pokes there are one of the most important parts of Bryan's kit. The third bad habit that I want to talk about is not really utilizing heat, or kind of just neglecting it. So when the game first came out and for a while afterwards, Bryan's heat was really bad. I would honestly say that at the start of the game, he probably had the worst heat in the game. Maybe second to Panda. But now, with all the buffs that Bryan's got over the course of the game, his heat is actually really good. And there's two parts of this that I want to talk about. The first is getting into heat, and the second is when you're actually in heat. A lot of Bryan players, lower to mid-level Bryan players, are kind of neglecting his heat engagers, and his heat engagers are really good. Down back 1+2 is really fast, the tracking is really amazing, and the range is also really good. This is a really good follow-up when you're plus, if you want to try to get into heat. For example, you know, this completely beats sidestep right after hatchet kick, side walk. I'm not sure if it's completely going to beat it, but it also does as well. So the tracking on down back 1+2 is really good. It's safe on block. It's a really good way to get into heat. It's a good way to stop your opponent from sidestepping as well. QCF 1+2 though is definitely his best heat engager. You can almost treat this move kind of like a demon paw. The tracking on it is really good. It's got amazing range. It's got a little built-in high evasion in it, just because of that QCF input that you're doing. It does 28 damage. It's a lot of damage. It's really fast, safe on block. Just one of the best moves in the game, in my opinion. And a lot of Bryan's game plan at the mid-range in this game is going to be based around QC back 1 and QCF 1+2. So if you're not fishing for QCF 1+2 often, I think you're making a big mistake, because it's a really good move, really annoying to deal with at the mid-range. Once you get into heat as well, Bryan is actually pretty strong. 1-2-4 is also a pretty decent heat engager. natural on counter hit. So playing out of turn with this move can be pretty good. I mean, especially if you're at the wall, your opponent's back is to the wall, and you really want to just get that pressure started, get into heat. You can get a really nice combo off this. It's also a good option to throw out, just to try to get into heat, just to get yourself out of a bad situation. Now, when Bryan is in heats, I think his heat is actually really good now, because of all the buffs that he's gotten. His heat smash is really, really, really good. It's plus 15 on block now. It leaves them range 0. And it being plus 15, if they try to do anything after this heat smash except hold back, you can hit them with basically anything. I mean, I have him set to do a sidestep here. He's going to get clapped by pretty much every move that I have, except QC back 1 apparently. What I normally like to do here, because when Bryan leaves heat, he still has Snake Eyes, I'll normally go for like a forward 2-1-2, or I'll go for a 3+4-2 or something like that. But if your opponent has low life, this basically guarantees you a free 50-50 between a mid or a low. Keep in mind it also chips. It's a pretty decent chip, not great, but it's okay. It floor breaks as well, gives you a full combo on a floor break. His heat smash is really, really good now. Same thing with the forward 2-1-2 string. I have a whole video about it, but the tracking on this string is just outrageous. It does a lot of damage. It's got a lot of range. It's really fast. It's essentially safe on block. Female characters can sidestep the last hit, but you don't have to do the last hit. You mainly use this as a hit confirm, right? So there I see it hits, I finish it. If it doesn't hit, you can delay all these hits of the string. Third hit is only -2, as you can see, and I'm pretty sure the fourth hit is -3, if I remember correctly. He's not gonna block it, but it is -3. So you have leeway there to move, to challenge, to do whatever you want. So forward 2-1-2 is one of your best moves. I think it's personally Bryan's best move in the game. And in heat, it's a real problem to deal with. Of course, you also have 3+4-2, which is really good. If they try to do anything after 3+4, they will get hit by this. You have the guard break as well at the wall. I get a decent amount of mileage out of this. It's not amazing, but it is something that you can use to try to like start a comeback, or if your opponent's being a little too passive at the wall, they're not really reacting, can get you some decent damage, and it's definitely a decent option to throw out. Forward 1+2 is also really good. It has a lot of range, +5 on block. The chip, it does 16 chip damage. It's crazy. I mean, if you get into heat and you just start stacking, running 3, QC back 1, FF 1+2, I mean, look at all the chip that he's taken already. I mean, just like any sort of sequence like this where you're kind of looping these plus frame moves like this, and I'm still in heat here, and then I can run heat smash right at the end. I mean, most people wouldn't just sit there forever, obviously, but just to give you an idea of how much chip you can really rack up with this move. It's also a parry. It parries everything, including knees and elbows, and it's a really good move to mash with as well. So his heat is really good now. He has a lot of different options to threaten the opponent with. And I think a lot of Bryan players are neglecting it just because of how bad it was at the start of the game. But now, I think his heat is on par with a lot of the better characters in the game. I would say his heat is super good. And I don't think you should neglect it. I think you should try to get into heat whenever you can by throwing out, QCF 1+2, down back 1+2, and then try to close the round with that. Those forward 2-1-2s, that heat smash, all really good options. Sidestep 2-1 is an option that I want to touch on really quickly as well when you're in heat. This is a really good move in neutral. You have to place it a little bit well because the recovery on the first hit is pretty bad. So if you do kind of whiff this, you're pretty out of luck there. But it is hit confirmable, and when you're in heat, I just love fishing for this because it's a full combo starter, and the combo that you get afterwards does so much damage, so much wall carry. It's hard to display here because I'm all the way at the middle of the stage, so not much wall carry to show off, but the damage is super high, the wall carry is super high, and it's a really good move to fish for when you are in heat. Same with QCF 1+2, becomes a full combo. So really low risk option there to just try to get a lot of damage on the table. So don't neglect Bryan's heat in this game. It's one of his best tools come out of heat, right? Forward 2-1-2, QCF 1+2, things like that. So don't ignore it. Try to get into it, and you will find a lot more success than you would not using it. So the next thing I want to talk about is pretty similar to not using the pokes, disregarding the pokes, but I wanted to give it its own kind of entry because of how important it is, and that is kind of neglecting Bryan's jab. I can make a whole video about Bryan jab. I probably will at some point, but I just want to touch on it briefly here. Bryan's jab is, without a doubt, his most important move. His jab has a lot of range. The hitbox is pretty bad, notoriously, but the jab has a lot of range. As you can see here, you can use it from quite far away. So our jab is going to be one of our most important moves when it comes to keep out, as just having a super safe, consistent, and very low committal option to kind of keep the opponent out. And obviously it's not super rewarding on hit, it's only 5 damage, but we do get +8, which gives us access to a lot of frame traps, a forward 3, a 3+4, QC back 1, whatever you want to do. It's great for keep out. It's great for also starting offense up close, as his jab has decent tracking, so when you're plus, a single jab or a 1-2 or something like that can be a decent follow-up on your offense, and you're going to get those plus frames, you're going to get that small chunk of damage, but it's going to make your opponent have to kind of respect your offense a little bit more when you're using jab in there. Obviously his one jab is fantastic for keep out and starting offense. His 1-2 is really good as well because of all the extensions. His 1-2 natural on hit, of course, +8 on hit. Not a lot of damage, of course, but the follow-ups are really good. You've got 1-2-1, which is super delayable, all natural on counter hit, a lot less risky than doing 1-2-4. You've got 1-2-3, kind of catch your opponent sleeping at the wheel a little bit. It is, reactable, fuzzyable, whatever, but it's a good option to throw out once, twice, maybe in a set, just to kind of make that mental stack after 1-2 a little bit scarier, and to get a little bit of damage on the table as well. When you're dealing with Bryans that are doing a lot of 1-2, a lot of 1-2-3, a lot of 1-2-1, it can get really, really annoying and really, really overwhelming really fast, because of the fact that you also have to respect 1-2 on block because of the 1-2-1, which is delayable. And of course, this third hit of 1-2-1 is a counter hit launcher, right? So Bryan doing 1-2 in neutral, he has so many options that he can go to afterwards. 1-2 into back 1, 1-2 into hatchet kick, 1-2 into down back 3. Just the offensive possibilities here are endless, and it's something that I see is lacking in a lot of Bryan players' game plan, is using that one jab, using that 1-2, whether it's for keep out, whether it's for offense. I mean, it's your lowest committal button that you have, and the options afterwards are pretty endless, and it's something that you should be using all the time to start your offense, to keep your keep out safe, really for whatever you want. But again, I coach so many Bryan players, and I see them not using one jab. Maybe they're doing 1-2-1 a lot, maybe they're doing 1-2-4 a lot, but very rarely are they using a good combination of just single jab and 1-2, and the follow-ups afterwards, the potential offensive freedom that you have there. So try to focus more when you play on using Bryan's one jab, using his 1-2, and you're going to find out how easy it becomes to keep up with your opponent, to control the pace, to just have such an amazing option that's so low committal and that gives you so many other options afterwards. So it is really it's your best tool. It should be probably the button that you're pressing the most is just one jab. I mean, you can see when you watch Nee play Bryan how much he relies on that one jab, and if you want to see how he uses it, I would recommend just watching Tiger Uppercut, which just happened, and see how often Nee was jabbing with Bryan. His other jab strings, 1-4, are really great to just throw out as well. There's a lot of layers to his single jab, but I'm just going to keep it brief for now and just tell you to try to experiment with it and to make sure that you're using it more often. So the last thing that I want to touch on, the mistake, is pretty broad. Try to keep it simple, but basically it is just doing terrible combos. So Bryan has one of the highest damage outputs in the game. His damage and wall carry are exceptionally high, among the best in the game. And this kind of ties into what we talked about a little bit earlier with Bryan players fishing a little bit too much for those big counter hit buttons, because something that I notice when I coach a lot of Bryan players or I play against them is that they are fishing so hard for 3+4s, back ones, everything, and then the combos that they're doing afterwards, they're not getting wall, they're not doing a lot of damage, they're just not worth all the time and effort that you're putting into trying to get this big counter hit launch. So I just want to talk really quick about a couple things that you can do to get better combos with Bryan, right? So here's an example of a combo, pretty simple one. This is just going to be our staple combo, right? Jet upper into wall sending 3-4. First of all, we should try to learn how to do this. There's a lot of Bryan players that are still doing this, for example, and the damage is just not great. The wall carry is not great. Doing double knees here, that's the first thing that we should try to learn, right? Now, if you see, we'll just keep the combo simple, right? We'll just pop heat, and we don't get wall. Now, how can we modify this combo so that we can get wall? It's actually pretty simple and not very difficult, right? All we do is add a little wall sending 3 there, sidestep into wall sending 3, and then we make it all the way to the wall, 98 damage. We have heat. The Oki's incredible. That's just one example of how you can maximize wall carry. Even doing something different, like if you were to freestyle something like this, if you were to go for the hard route, which is something that I talked about in one of my earlier videos. I think I dropped it. Yeah, I did. We're not going to touch on that combo, but there are so many options that you have available to you. Even BRYAN players I see that are still doing, for example, a combo like this, right? After QC back 1, they're doing double knees into something like that. But there are much better routes available. For example, back 2-4, right? We have this really good back 2-4 combo that we can do. Much better wall carry, much better damage. It even gives us snake eyes at the end. The possibilities are really, really endless with his combos. Even I see BRYAN players still doing like a combo like this, right? Double knees after back 1 when this route exists, where we can do back 2 forward 4, right, into back 2-1 forward 2-4, and then just end the combo with whatever you want. I'm planning on making a more updated combo guide in the future, but I would really recommend that you guys just watch high-level BRYAN players and see what combos they're doing and try to emulate them. And if you guys are at the point where you feel comfortable with, you know, hitting combos like this, the really easy stuff, then try to graduate to the more difficult stuff like doing double knees here, because I promise you guys, with a little bit of practice, it's not as hard as you think. At the beginning, it feels impossible. It's really difficult. But in my opinion, if you're not optimizing your damage with BRYAN at least a little bit, then he's not a character that's worth playing, because his strength really comes from just super rewarding combo damage, wall carry. And you guys saw how easy it was for me to modify this combo to just go wall to wall, right? All I did was add a little wall sending 3 in there, pop heat, and the combo got all the way to the wall. And that's an easy route that you can do, right? That's not difficult. So combo optimization is super important. Any combo you can do where you can do a back 2 forward 4 or a back 2-4 in it is always going to be really good. Even something simple like I see people doing the old forward 3 combo, right? You get a counter hit forward 3, you just do that little sidestep down back 2, right? And then let's look at that, right? That's 70 damage. But instead, you can just do sidestep into instant wall sending 3-4, right? Do the same combo, and we got 71, but the wall carry was much better there. And we can even optimize that combo even further. And I know a lot of this combo optimization may seem really daunting at first, but I promise you guys it's worth it. You really just have to sit down and put in the effort into getting better at doing the more difficult stuff. BRYAN, he's a high execution character, right? So that's something that you have to expect. And you have to be willing to put in the time to really get comfortable with these more difficult routes to really maximize the reward that you get with this character. It's crazy how often I'll talk to a BRYAN player that's just doing terrible combos, and they basically say, oh, I tried to learn double knees, but it took me, 30 minutes and I couldn't get it down by then, so I just stopped. Guys, it takes way longer than that. I can't even tell you how long it took me to get the BRYAN dash back 2-4 into dash heat burst combo, but it was so worth it. It took me hours and hours to get consistent with that combo, but the damage increase and the wall carry increase that you get is so worth it. I promise you guys, if you just sit down and take the time to actually learn these routes, you're going to win so many more matches if your combos are actually optimized, because I think that's when BRYAN actually becomes a really strong character, when the player piloting him is ready to convert off of anything with a super high damage, super long wall carry combo. It's going to get the wall, it's going to have to deal with taunt, and that's really what makes BRYAN strong, because he's not a strong character in neutral. He's really designed to win off of one interaction, right? One big counter hit into an optimized combo into Oki, right? If you're having to win all these interactions because your combos aren't optimized, the character can start to feel really weak, and it can get frustrating. So I really advise you guys to sit down and practice these routes. Even if it's something simple like paying attention to if you have snake eyes in a combo, right? Because you guys know when BRYAN does snake eyes, he does that little animation, and your recovery afterwards is pretty bad. So your options can be a little restricted, but take a simple optimization. Let's say you already have snake eyes in a combo, right? You guys remember that wall sending 3 we did earlier? We can modify that after this staple combo, right? Instead of doing a wall sending 3 here, you could do back 2 forward 4 into dash heat burst like that, right? And that jab there into that back 3, that was me trying to recover that combo, which I totally dropped. if it makes you guys feel any better, I drop combos all the time as well, so don't feel bad if you're making a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm trying these combos, and it's honestly quite scary how often I'm dropping them. Maybe my execution isn't as good as I thought it was. But even again, I mean, something like this, like just doing a normal staple combo, right? Instead of doing the back 3 ender, because you have a lot of time to dash here, because he doesn't do snake eyes, you can do dash up, back 2-1, forward 2-1 like that, get extra damage in your combo, right? So things like that, even something simple like that, like just knowing if you have snake eyes or not, knowing if that recovery animation is going to come out. Big optimizations that you guys can make to get better combos, better damage, better wall carry. So that's pretty much everything I had to say today. I just wanted to touch on a couple common mistakes that I see a lot of BRYAN players making, and hopefully you recognize some of your own mistakes in this video, and you can learn from it. I love teaching the game, I love teaching BRYAN, so I'm happy to try to help you guys out with this. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, if it was helpful, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, let me know that you guys enjoyed it. Follow me on Twitter, follow my Twitch. I stream as often as I can. Pretty busy these days, but I still try to take a little bit of time and just play. So yeah, thanks again guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day.